Welcome back. Today I'll be going over Lisa Marie Presley's book, From Here to the Great Unknown. We'll be doing chapter 3. Lisa said when she was 10 years old, they had a housekeeper who she describes as a wonderful black lady named Ruby. Ruby would shuttle Lisa to school in the morning and would play gospel songs in the car. Lisa said all she wanted to listen to was gospel music because that's what Elvis listened to. So in Priscilla's book, the new book, Softly as I Leave You, she says Lisa loved gospel and associated gospel with Elvis. Anyway, Lisa said that she attended a couple of different schools, and these schools were much more casual with no uniforms required. And she says the individualized learning program better suited her. She could complete assignments at her own pace. But she says, quote, still over the next few years, I started to develop a really bad attitude and I was getting heavily into drugs. After getting kicked out of a school in Culver City, the Scientology Center sent her to the Apple Scientology School in Los Feliz. She failed all of her classes at that school too. Lisa said she, quote, wasn't trying to be bad. I just seriously didn't give a F. She was in a screw everything and everyone state of mind. Lisa said around this time is when she discovered Pink Floyd's album The Wall, and she called this her Bible and autobiography. Lisa was constantly getting called into the principal's office, or what they call in Scientology the ethics office. She wouldn't show up for a class or would just skip school entirely. Lisa said Priscilla could not control her and that Lisa, was not easy on Priscilla. She said she just had no interest in school or being well behaved. She knew that Priscilla was looking around at different boarding schools to place her in. Lisa had found brochures and applications from different places, including a kibbutz in Israel, also a boarding school in Switzerland. Lisa said she would purposely fail the entrance exams and that she felt her mom was actively trying to send her away. So in Priscilla's new book, she does say that she applied to have Lisa attend a boarding school in Switzerland, but the plan was that Priscilla was going to Lisa home in Switzerland so that Lisa could visit on weekends, but Lisa had failed the school's entrance exam. Anyway, one day, Priscilla drove Lisa to a home they owned in Montecito. She told Lisa to pack her clothes because she was going to attend the Happy Valley School in Ojai, California. Lisa was not happy, and she said that the school was, quote, clearly designed for parents who wanted to just send their kids away. Lisa said the first thing she did when she got to the school was look for someone who had weed, and she found that many of the kids there were very much like her, and she loved it. She would go home to Montecito for the weekend unless she got in trouble in school and had to stay on campus. And she said she was always getting in trouble for either drug busts or not going to class. She said at this point she still had no interest in school or even a career. She said, quote, all I wanted to do was drugs, weed and coke mainly. She said that there was no particular drug she favored. She liked them all. The only thing she hadn't tried was heroin though. So this part is really interesting to me because in Priscilla's new book, she talks about how her son Navarone, his substance abuse, she talks about his substance abuse and that he hadn't had any bad trips on any drug and that he liked them all too. But what he loved the most was heroin. Anyway, so Lisa doesn't say it outright in this book, but she implies that she was kicked out of Apple Valley School. And she said the school didn't want to cut all ties with her, though, because, quote, they knew my home life wasn't so great. She said every summer the head of the school would take a handful of kids to Spain where the head of the school owned a home. Lisa was invited to go even though she was no longer a student at the school. She said the kids would help around the house and tend to the garden. Then at night they'd hang out and party. Now Riley's talking. Riley says Lisa had a special connection to Ojai and she would drive the kids out there at any opportunity. Lisa loved going horseback riding in Ojai, and she knew how to read and connect with horses. She would know if they were scared or annoyed. On the way to Ojai, Lisa would listen to Michael Martin Murphy's song Wildfire, which is a song about a mysterious woman and her pony. Riley says there was a horse in Hawaii that Lisa loved to ride, and she wanted to bring the horse back to Los Angeles with her, but the owner said no. During the coronavirus pandemic, Lisa went to Ojai often to ride horses. The last horse she rode was named Corona, which she found funny. Now Lisa's talking. Lisa said at this point in her life, Priscilla wasn't really involved in her life. Her mom didn't talk to her or spend any time with her. Lisa said she loved her dad's side of the family so much, and she says, quote, they were wildly colorful people, and I related to them in ways I couldn't with my own mother. Lisa does acknowledge, though, that Priscilla was doing her best. Lisa didn't make it easy on her mom, saying she gave her a, quote, genuinely hard time. But Lisa said she never yelled or cursed at Priscilla, and Lisa was just, quote, despondent, extremely melancholy, moody, dark, and that Priscilla probably just didn't know what to do with her. So I'm not a psychologist, but this sounds like depression after losing your father. And in Priscilla's new book, she says Scientology teaches you to not trust psychologists. And I wonder how different Lisa's life would have been had Priscilla sought out the advice of a therapist after Elvis passed away. I mean, this poor little girl is struggling with the loss of her father. Anyway, Lisa said when she got back from Spain, she really didn't want to go back to school in Ojai, but she had to. There was a new, quote, wild girl at the school that had been waiting for Lisa to return. Lisa said this girl was cool and it was all fine until the girl slept with a German kid that Lisa had been seeing at the time. That was the last straw for her as far as Happy Valley and Ojai. So Lisa pretended she was whacked out on drugs and called Priscilla and told her that she would die if she stayed up there. So Priscilla took her out of Happy Valley. Lisa said Priscilla had been dating Michael Edwards by now, and that their relationship, Priscilla and Edwards' relationship, would last 6 years before they broke up. So in Priscilla's new book, she says she enrolled Lisa at Happy Valley after the whole Michael Edwards thing. Priscilla had broken it off with him and then sent Lisa to the Apple Valley School. And she did it because she suspected Lisa was starting to get into drugs and alcohol. And Priscilla later says in her book that she eventually learned Lisa, while at Happy Valley, began using pot, cocaine, alcohol, and sedatives, and was failing all of her classes. And at that point, she removed Lisa from the school. So their stories, Lisa's and Priscilla's, they're not matching here, the timelines. Anyway, Lisa said Michael Edwards was often on drugs and he had a terrible temper. And he and Priscilla would constantly fight. Lisa says, quote, and it was physical. I'd hear her screaming. She said Priscilla and Edwards would go out and party, and they would party often, and a lot of cocaine was involved. They'd come home and Lisa would hear Edwards shouting and throwing furniture. She describes experiencing this as, quote, destabilizing. Lisa said one day Priscilla was yelling at her because Lisa had wire hangers in her closet. And Priscilla was upset because Lisa should have switched out the wire hangers for plastic ones. Then she heard Edwards laughing down the hallway. He had been cast in the movie Mommy Dearest, and he pointed out the irony with the wire hangers. If you haven't watched the movie Mommy Dearest, it's a biopic of Joan Crawford's adopted daughter, Christine. And Christine details what a terrible perfectionist Joan Crawford was. And there's a scene in the movie where Joan finds wire hangers in Christine's closet and just loses it, screaming, "No wire hangers!" And she begins to whip Christine with the wire hangers. It's so wild. It's an insane scene. Anyway, so Edwards is laughing, and Priscilla realizes how crazy it is too, and she's laughing, and Lisa's thinking to herself, this is my life now. You're both effing crazy. Lisa said she was supposed to go back to Happy Valley, but she was so far behind she would need extensive tutoring. So she just stayed at her mom's house, who was by now living with Michael Edwards. So I know this chapter seems like it bounces around a lot. And I know Riley had an impossible task of trying to sew together audio tapes and her own memories into a book. So I apologize. I know it feels like it's going back and forth, and I'm just trying to read it. I'm reading it through. I'm reading the chapter the way it's chronicled, chronologically, how it's written. So I'm sorry. I know it sounds confusing sometimes. Anyway, Lisa said she didn't want to be at school, but she also didn't want to be at her mom's house either. And she said, quote, I don't know what I wanted. I probably just wanted my dad. Lisa said she would continue to have a bad attitude all the time and would listen to heavy metal music on her record player all day. She said one night Priscilla made chicken for dinner, and when Lisa cut into it, it was still raw. So she pointed it out to Priscilla, and Edwards blew a gasket and threw his plate against the wall. Lisa was confused and threw her hands up to say, What the F? And Edwards jumped up, screaming and shouting, and then left the room. He returned, still yelling, and held up the cord to Lisa's record player that he had just cut off with scissors. He shouted at Lisa about being ungrateful for her mom's cooking, and all she does is listen to her rock and roll music, and then he told her to get out. Shocked, she left the kitchen, and as she was walking away, she could hear Edwards and Priscilla trying to figure out what to do with her. Lisa said she went looking for some cocaine she had hidden, but couldn't find it. Okay, so now Lisa is going to discuss what Edwards did to her in her bedroom. And I was conflicted on if how much detail to include in this review. It's disturbing what Edwards did to little Lisa. And I was gonna kind of wasn't sure if I should just summarize it or detail it the way she details it. But I think I think that I would be doing a disservice to Lisa and to her book by kind of overlooking it or kind of like brushing through it, just because you have to understand how this really damaged her as a person with this traumatic experience. So I'm going to go into it. It's not graphic, but if you don't want to listen to it, just press fast forward. Okay, Lisa says, the quote, the first time Edwards came into my room in the middle of the night, drunk, kneeling, was years before. I think I was 10. She woke up one night and he was on his knees next to her bed. He was running his finger up her leg under her sheets. When she would move, he would stop, so she kept moving, pretending she was still asleep. She said he told her he was going to, quote, teach me what was going to happen when I get older. He put his hands on her chest and told her a man is going to touch her there, and then put his hands between Lisa's legs and said she would be touched there too. She said she thinks he kissed her and then left her bedroom. Lisa said she told Priscilla the next day while they were in the car. Priscilla, quote, slammed her foot on the gas, and when they got home, Priscilla ran to her bedroom and slammed the door behind her. Lisa said a while later Priscilla called Lisa in and told her Edwards wanted to apologize. Edwards was sitting on the bed looking sullen and told her, quote, I'm so sorry, but in Europe that's how they teach the kids, so that's what I was doing. Lisa said she didn't know how to respond to his apology. Okay, I think we can all agree that that wasn't an apology. Not an apology at all. It was a feeble attempt at an excuse for what he did. Lisa said Edwards coming into her room at night became a routine. He would touch her and spank her bottom, all the while telling her not to look at him. She suspected he was touching himself at the same time, and eventually she would get very bad bruises on her bottom. Lisa said she once showed her mom her bruised bottom, and Priscilla said, quote, well, what did you do to cause that? She put the blame on Lisa. Lisa said Priscilla would then go yell at Edwards and he'd blame it on him being drunk, or say, quote, she was actually flirting with me. Priscilla would force Edwards to apologize to Lisa, and Lisa would feel bad for him and forgive him. This went on until she was 13 years old. She said he would occasionally come into her room, but she would move, and that would scare him back off to Priscilla's room. So in Priscilla's book, her new book, she makes the accusation that Lisa had a, quote, schoolgirl crush on Edwards. And I wonder if she included this crush thing because of what Lisa just said here in her book, the thing with Edwards saying that was she flirted with me. Anyway, Lisa said around this time Priscilla began her career in acting and modeling. Priscilla was gone a lot, so Lisa ended up spending more time at home with Edwards than her mom. Lisa said every Christmas Priscilla would lavish these great gifts on her. Edwards didn't have a lot of money, so he couldn't do the same for Lisa, and he would be pretty hard on himself for that. Lisa said she would, quote, cry on Christmas Day because I felt so bad for him. Edward still had a terrible temper, though, and Lisa recalls one morning when he told her she needed to get her underwear off the dryer. She replied back with something like, quote, it's not like you're not enjoying that. Lisa started walking out of the room, and Edwards picked up a chair and threw it at her. And she says the chair hit her on the back, and it didn't hurt that much, but it frightened her. Yeah, no kidding. That's terrible. Lisa reiterates that there was a lot of fighting in the house between Priscilla and Edwards, screaming, yelling, throwing things. And Lisa wanted to protect her mom, but didn't know how to. She said one incident was really bad on one of his modeling jobs. They were in the Virgin Islands, and Priscilla suspected Edwards of having a fling with one of the other models. Priscilla asked Lisa to help her catch Edwards cheating. At one point, Priscilla went into his room, and Lisa could hear them shouting at each other. Lisa walked in just as Edwards threw her mom onto the bed. So Lisa jumped on his back, and he threw her down on the bed too. Priscilla screamed, let's go, let's go. And they took off down the hallway to an elevator. They were pushing the button for the elevator to open. All the while, they see Edwards running down, chasing them, running down the hallway towards them. And Lisa said it was like a horror film watching him run while they were frantically waiting for the elevator doors to open. And Lisa and Priscilla made it back to their room. Edwards called Priscilla and begged her to come back to him. And when she did, Lisa said she was so angry. Lisa left for Memphis the next day, an absolute wreck. Now Riley's talking. Riley says what happened between Lisa and Edwards was, quote, one of her deepest childhood traumas. Riley says neither Lisa nor those around Lisa fully recognized how it shaped her lasting feelings of shame and self-hatred. Now Lisa's talking. Lisa said she got her first boyfriend when she was 14. They dated for a year and they fooled around, but she said they never had intercourse. She describes him as a good kid, but had a bad temper. Lisa went with Priscilla on location to shoot a movie Priscilla was in called Love is Forever. It was filmed in the Bahamas, and the day before Lisa flew back home, she met a 23-year-old man who had a small role in the film. So Lisa doesn't say his name, but for the sake of telling my review, let's just call him Bob. Lisa said Bob was very good looking, and they spent time walking on the beach, talking. She watched him pack, and he kissed her, and then she flew back home. She still had her boyfriend back home, and on the plane she listened to the song Torn Between Two Lovers on repeat. When she got back home, she broke up with her boyfriend, and Lisa said she would call Bob and just not say anything. He he eventually figured out it was her because he would ask questions and she would push the buttons to answer yes or no. So he eventually figured out it was her, and he was very apprehensive about meeting up with her because of the age difference. One day, after telling her teacher she had to go to a dentist appointment, she left the school and he picked her up a couple of blocks away. She says they spent the day walking around Beverly Hills, and she said she didn't care what they did, she just wanted to be with him. Right before he dropped her back off at school, he gave her his ring, and she says, quote, I was gone, really, really gone. Priscilla found out about Bob and prohibited Lisa from seeing him again. And Lisa said she understands why her mom did that, but back then it didn't work. Lisa would sneak around to see him because she was madly in love with Bob. Eventually, Priscilla resigned herself to the fact that she couldn't keep the two apart. So Priscilla allowed Lisa to see Bob as long as she was there. Priscilla was there. For example, he could come hang out at the house while Priscilla was home, or Lisa could meet him somewhere away from the house where Priscilla would be too. Eventually, Edwards and Bob became friends by circumstance since 23-year-old Bob was being chaperoned by Edwards' girlfriend. Lisa said in a way she was living the same life as Priscilla. Priscilla and Elvis were 14 and 24 respectively when they met. She said the only difference was Elvis and Priscilla waited until Priscilla was 18 before they had sex, whereas Lisa lost her virginity at 14. Lisa said she was able to get around Priscilla's chaperone rule by telling Priscilla she and Bob would just be walking around and then they'd go to fool around in his car. Lisa said Bob was a womanizer and had girls of all ages chasing after him. And Lisa said a Playboy bunny who was already having an affair with Bob when he met Lisa tried to convince Priscilla to send Lisa away to the kibbutz to get Lisa out of the way. So how did this Playboy bunny know about underage Lisa? I mean, Bob had to have told her, right? Which means the Playboy bunny would have had to know that Lisa was underage. Anyway, Lisa said her relationship with Bob lasted 2.5 years and it ended horribly. Lisa said Bob had his friends secretly wait at a park. Bob took Lisa to the park and his friend took photos of Bob and Lisa together. Bob and his friend then sold the pictures to the tabloids. She said the media didn't care that theirs was an illegal relationship with Lisa being underage, and they published the photos anyway. Priscilla told Lisa Bob had set up the photos to be taken, but Bob denied it. Lisa said she swallowed 20 Valium pills, but she made sure someone saw her do it. She was taken to the hospital where she was given Ipecac to make her vomit all the pills back up. Lisa said she was devastated. Quote, "That was my first big love and first big betrayal." Lisa wanted revenge though, and Priscilla came up with a plan. But she didn't disclose it to Lisa because Lisa was still kind of hanging around with Bob still. Bob was dealing drugs, so it was arranged that some off-duty police officers would bust him and would humiliate him in the process. Lisa said, quote, Priscilla, she told me they did an anal probe. Now Riley's talking. Riley says Lisa often spoke about this betrayal, describing it as the first time she felt used and realized others had ulterior motives. It became a core trauma that contributed to a lasting distrust of people rooted in her childhood experience. So Priscilla doesn't mention any of this in her own book, her new book. Now Lisa's talking. Lisa said she went back to school, but it was no good. She didn't understand why she was there in the first place. She would look at her report cards, and ever since she was little, the report cards would say that Lisa was really tired and she hated physical education and that she was forlorn. So in Priscilla's new book, Priscilla does say that she would ask the school to give her Lisa's report cards before Lisa saw it. Priscilla says that she knew that seeing failing grades would affect Lisa's self-esteem and reinforce the idea to her that school was pointless. Anyway, Lisa said after everyone who saw her after Elvis passed away said she looked sad. She said she was miserable living with Priscilla, and it was clear her mom didn't want her there. Other schools never worked out, so in the middle of the night, Priscilla had Lisa pack her bags and took her to the Scientology Celebrity Center. Lisa was put in a small room on the 3rd floor, and she said she was just happy to be away from her mom's house. Lisa said the first thing she did was call her coke dealer and invited him and several other people. She said, quote, "We proceeded to have a 4-day bender in that room." She said she woke up at one point and everyone else was asleep. She realized she was done with that lifestyle and kicked everyone out. Then she went to the center's auditing location. Auditing in Scientology is where a member would go and they get hooked up to a machine that is very similar to a lie detector. And an auditor will ask questions about what's causing stress. And it's like a combination of therapy and confession. Anyway, she went to where they audit people and she was shaking and sweating and crying. She said, "Help me," but she could barely speak. Lisa was moved to the 6th floor of the Scientology Center. She describes it as a luxury palace, and they made her promise to behave. And she said for the next few months, she started to do really well. Then Priscilla wanted Lisa to move back home, and it all fell apart. Lisa said she and Priscilla and Edwards went to Florida to visit Edwards' daughter. Lisa and his daughter were supposed to stay home, but they snuck out and tried to get a drink. They were caught somehow, and Lisa said she saw Priscilla pull up to Edwards' daughter's house. Lisa took off running down the street with Priscilla chasing her. Lisa eventually got into the car where she was trying to dodge Priscilla smacking her from the front seat, and Edwards was trying to get Priscilla away from Lisa. Lisa said she was punching herself in the face to make it look like Priscilla did it. The next day they flew to Los Angeles. Lisa was trying to call the Celebrity Center to get a hold of someone who could help her, but Priscilla wouldn't let her out of her sight. She and Priscilla went to the Celebrity Center to retrieve Lisa's belongings and went home that night. Lisa said the next day, quote, heavy negotiations started. Lisa said Priscilla agreed to let her go back to the Celebrity Center as long as she enrolled in the center's Narconon rehab. Narconon is spelled Narconon. So in Priscilla's new book, she says she enrolled Lisa in a private school, but Lisa was able to find drugs there too. So she took Lisa to the Celebrity Center one evening because she knew they had a rehab program called Narconon, and she checked Lisa into it. And Lisa went into detox and began their drug education process. Anyway, Lisa said she didn't agree at first to entering rehab. Eventually, after some more negotiations where Lisa said she'd rather live on the streets, they agreed to allow Lisa to move back to her old room on the 6th floor at the Celebrity Center. Lisa said she wanted the freedom she had there. Lisa says she moved back and soon after found herself passed out drunk in front of her room. Then someone at the Celebrity Center came up with the idea to have Lisa look after a young mother who was addicted to heroin. Lisa said that this turned out to be a truly great idea. Lisa was given a car to drive the young mother around in and helped the mother with her life. And she became very close with this young mother. Lisa said, quote, I really thrived taking care of her, helping somebody else. I think this is the first time Lisa's realizing she is a really good caretaker, that she would be a really good mother. Lisa said she was still occasionally messing around with Bob, who was living with his girlfriend, or maybe it was wife by then. She said Bob wanted to continue to see her, but by then she had met and fallen in love with a man named Danny Keough. That's it for chapter 3. Stay tuned for chapter 4, where Lisa discusses her relationship with Danny Keough, the birth of her children Riley and Benjamin, and the start of her singing career. I'll see you then.